I'll call this meeting to order at 7:01, and we'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence. So everyone could please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, moving right along to proclamations. We do have one proclamation up for this month for Pride Month, and just as a quick point of note, Chairwoman Nuccio is not available this evening due to a prior commitment at the legislature, but moving forward with the proclamation, there was a request from Councillor Falusi to read the proclamation into the record. I reached out to the chair, and while technically it's supposed to be the chair or the vice chair, Chairwoman Nuccio said that she wouldn't object to Councillor Falusi reading it and wanted to pass along her well wishes to your daughter for Pride Month. So I don't know, Mike, if you have the packet up to share the screen, or if that should be something I would do in terms of sharing that proclamation.
I don't have the packet up. If you,
okay. I should be able to. I can share my screen in a second, I believe. Sorry, I've actually never shared my screen before, so this might be a new ad. I'm able to do it on the Mac. Sorry about that, everyone.
No worries.
If you would like to just read the proclamation, though, Councillor Falusi, if you have it, while I'm trying to get this figured out, you're more than welcome to.
I do. All right,
okay, great.
So the Town of Tolland proclamation. Whereas the Town of Tolland is a welcoming community and an exceptional place to live, work, play, and raise a family. Whereas the Town of Tolland recognizes the importance of equality and freedom. And whereas the nation was founded upon and is guided by a set of principles that includes that every person has been created equal, that each has rights to their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and that each shall be accorded to the full recognition and protection of law. And whereas lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender and queer, plus the LGBTQ plus communities are an integral part of Tolland's population. And whereas the Town of Tolland is dedicated to fostering acceptance of all its citizens and preventing discrimination and bullying. And whereas the Town of Tolland celebrates the diversity of its people and their right to live their lives out loud, free of discrimination, fear, and prejudice. And whereas it is imperative that young people in the community, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, feel valued, safe, empowered, and supported by their peers, educators, and community leaders. And whereas Tolland is proud to support and protect the civil rights of the LGBTQ plus community, and now, therefore, the Town of Tolland Council, on behalf of the citizens of Tolland, proclaims June 2021 as LGBTQ plus Pride Month. In witness thereof, on behalf of Tammy Nuccio, who will be signing this on the first day of June 2021.
Thank you. So moving right along. I was able to try and share the screen.
I was ad-libbing that last part there.
Okay, no
So
worries.
thank you. And to my daughter, Mary Beth, love you, girl.
All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment and we'll move right along to item 5, public petitions, communications, and public participation on any subject within the jurisdiction of the town council with a 2-minute limit. So if you are a member of the public, you can either hit the raise button or participation button to raise your hand, or if you're on a phone, you can hit *9, and it'll be a 2-minute limit. So if there's anyone, give that a moment. All right. Seeing none, we'll move right along to public hearing items, which there are none. Reports of boards and committees responsible to the council. I don't believe I see Katie on, so I will move for the Birch Grove. So we'll move on to reports of town council liaisons. And based on my list, I'll have Councilor Felucci go first with their reports of boards and commissions.
Okay. So first I'll do sustainable CT. We had a meeting this morning. Had about 5 people there. It was great to be able to see everybody again. As you know, we had a presentation almost 2 months ago, I think, from the members of Sustainable CT about how they were updating the program. Previously, it was hard for someone who wasn't integral to inside the town offices in order to do some of these, earn some points. I'm very happy to say there's at least 12 items that I could actually do, and we actually already have a lot of information for creating points for. So I'm thrilled. So some of the categories that we're going to be earning some points for: inclusive and equitable communities. So participating in equity training and developing and adopting an equity statement. That equity statement would be created by the community members. For equity training, I already attended some training earlier in the year, but there is, if you go to sustainablect.org, there is equity training available for any town employee or any elected official. They're having 1 session a month for 3 months. I believe they're usually on a Friday, and there are 4 hours of training. So anybody here, again, elected officials and town employees can get involved in that. Another category we're looking at is thriving local economies. So this is perfect as we come out of the pandemic and we're helping our small businesses. So we're going to be taking a look at inventorying all of our local retail options, helping promote them online, and sharing a map. So another is well-stewarded lands and natural resources. Obviously, the wanted property is a property that has a couple options on it that fits sustainable CT. And we also did the matching fund with that. So that's, again, something we can earn some points with. And we're also going to be taking a look at dark skies to see if we can earn some points about that and help with light pollution. We're taking a look at our cultural ecosystems. That's very similar to what we're doing with the local retailer. We're going to be taking a look at poet laureate, an artisan in residence maybe, or just recognizing yearly artists that in their contributions to town, different things like that. We also have some planning options. So some resilient and dynamic planning, they call it. Creating inclusive, engaging communications with the town, and healthy, efficient, and diverse housing. That area with the diverse housing is something that planning and zoning is already looking at. So we're going to take a look at the work that they've been doing and see if we can apply it for some points. So did anybody have any questions? I see Council Luba has his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Council Luba.
Thank you. Yeah, just a question regarding the equity training that you mentioned. I mean, I've gone through probably 30 hours worth of equity training in my position. And so is that something that you have to go specifically through, the group, or is it something that that can be done where if I present the documentation that we can get the points for that as well.
Yep. Let's see. It's just going to take me, if you bear with me for 10 seconds while
Sure.
this opens up. Unfortunately, this is attending their equity training. However, they do have options that we can create our own points. So if I could, I'll check with someone with Sustainable CT and see if we can apply for points based on the training that you've already received.
Okay. Outstanding. Thank you. I just
And
wanted.
if anybody else has also received training through their job or outside of Sustainable CT, let me know. And again, I'll see how much we can get for that. Thank you.
Yeah, if you could look into that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Because, I think that, all of us have gone through at least some of that in some way, shape or form through our employment. So I think getting the points for that, that's an easy one to be able to satisfy. Thank you for giving that information.
Yeah. Anytime.
Agreed. Definitely.
Anybody else have anything on Sustainable CT questions? Okay.
Nope.
Then I'll move on to tourism if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah.
The Central Region Tourism Commission has not had any meetings since our last meeting, but we are doing a lot on the webpage, I'm sorry, on our Facebook page, and information that is provided on our webpage for things that are our inventory that we have already up about businesses, et cetera. Those can be applied towards Sustainable CT. And it's going to be something that I'm hoping to promote online. I continue to encourage everybody to like and share that page in the that Facebook page. In the past month, we've had 2,184 reaches. We've reached 2,184 people. We've had 435 engagements on posts, and we've had an additional 51 page likes. We could still do a lot better. There's lots of Tolland Facebook pages out there that have between 2,000 and 3,000 likes. So please share the page. Please invite people to like the page. And also, I did a little bit of searching. Insights is not going away for this page, but analytics will. I think Ms. Johnson had been talking about that previously. So I'll still be able to share things about engagements, but it's, graphs and stuff. We might not get all that information.
Okay.
So I see Ms. Johnson has a question.
Yeah, Councilor Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to, you mentioned at the last meeting that there were different degrees of which individuals are appointed to the tourism. And I just had difficulty finding it for myself. And I was just wondering if it's possible for you to share that information just by email or by posting it online, if it is something where any Tolland resident would be able to put their hat in order to serve, or any council member, anyone that has the background and experience. And yes, the analytics is with regard to Facebook is definitely what I was referring to with the insights that, just telling you how many people looked and how many page likes that you have and how the post reach comes. It's just that with the analytics, it gives you an opportunity to be able to gauge what works and what different methods that you can use in order to increase that reach, if it's by sharing posts or if it's creating more engaging posts. It's just with my experience, I know that the analytics was something that I felt that it was a huge thing for Facebook to take it away, and it was so helpful, but not everyone uses the analytics. But definitely regarding the tourism, mentioning that it was appointed, I went to tourismct.gov, and I couldn't find anything with regard to how it's done and how a person would, throw their hat into the ring in order to serve in that position. It seems that it would be a great opportunity to be able to promote tourism in Tolland, and anyone that has the experience with promotion would be able to do so, whether it be council member or resident. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, it's a state appointed position, and it was something that was, it's every 3 years. And that's only if the commission continues. So,
So
they
with the
need to
state
fund it.
appointments, how do they select the individual in order to do the appointment?
Right, I'm getting there. So
Okay.
the town, it was brought to the town council by the town manager 3 years ago that we had not had anybody in this role, and they were looking for an appointment. So I told the town manager last time that if no one else would take it, that I'm willing to take the role. So I did. I would assume that going forward, it would be another nomination since it was voted on by the town council. So I
Okay.
assume it will be a nomination that would go through Mr. Jones and Mr. Luba. And because it is a state appointed role, I'm not sure what other requirements there were, because again, I got it by default. It's been very enjoyable, but I do have to stress that you are also working for the state at the time. So my role is not just with the town of Tolland. I also promote everything in the Central Regional Tourism Commission by helping make their brochures, doing research, phone calls, stuff
Right.
like that. There's meetings, and unfortunately the meetings end up lately coinciding with the same time as town council meetings.
No
So-
problem, but you've been able to, I'm assuming that it's been something that you've been able to juggle. But you mentioned that,
No,
you mentioned that you would encourage for people within a community in order to step up or to be, but it's like I said, again, information to support
Right.
that so that people can, take a, explore the opportunity if they see fit. I
Mhm.
just had difficulty finding it myself. And as you are in the
Yeah.
role currently, if you could share the information, it'd be very helpful. Just my recommendation.
Right. No, as far as I know, they do not publish these roles. That it is information that is sent out to the town managers or their chief executive officers when the role it comes up for reappointment. And
So then I would just have to reach out to Mike, I assume?
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
let's circle back. I wrote down a note to reach out to Mike about this. I mean, he wasn't the town manager. I think when Brenda was appointed, it would have been Steve Werbner, so he might not even have the
Okay.
email. Maybe Mike Wilkinson would, but let's circle
Right.
back on that and get some
Sure.
full details to the council
No
for that.
problem. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just so you know, the meetings previously had not, we only had one conflict before. It's recently that they've changed the meeting time to coincide with town council meetings. So that's why I recommended we find someone who's in the industry, because they'll have connections throughout the commission and throughout the state, because, the role is primarily for, state assistance when it comes
So then
to.
with the industry saying that anyone in public relations, basically,
I'm
if they're,
saying people in tourism, hospitality, restaurant management, things like that.
okay, but public relations is engaging on the same level as well, like with, it's just a thing, like, again, in my experience with working with the Village of Freeport, bolstering tourism in Freeport was the highlight of what I did in serving as a public relations manager. And just with the different ways that things can be applied here, not being a person directly from tourism, but working with people within tourism and knowing how to work with them in order to get the best result for Tolland is something that it's a business plan, not just, throwing it out there, like being able to observe what we have. But it's like, again, I don't want to, spend too much time, unpackaging how that process would work. So circling back is not a problem. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Mhm.
All right.
All right,
let's see,
let me
Councilor
just
Bruce,
make sure that was it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, let me just
sure
make
if
sure
you had
that
any
was
report
it
from planning and
for
zoning or-
tourism. That was, yeah, that's it. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay,
All
sorry.
right,
No, I was just asking if that was the only one left or if you had other boards and commissions.
For the first part of it, I'm sorry, for boards and committees responsible to the council, that's all that I have. So
Okay.
reports of town council liaisons, I can move on if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, no worries. So planning and zoning met last night and I was late to the meeting. And I did not get an opportunity to read the notes, but for what I was there, they had a discussion for the planning and zoning regulations for the TVA area. It's kind of like a first look at it. They worked with their consultant, Dr. Don, and took a look at, where the appetite is for the planning and zoning to make some changes. So they went through, discussed some of the changes, including things like affordable housing. And then they also discussed some ADA recommendations that came up. And those items will be published in the minutes. People can look over them. There will be an opportunity for public input before there's a vote. And they also, before I forget, they noticed that on our agenda, we would be talking about extending the gas line. And the chair, Andy Powell, may come on, but they wanted me to extend their favorable feedback for if we decide to extend that. So that was it for planning and zoning. For Blight, meeting was canceled, and for the Historic District Commission, that meeting was also canceled.
All right, great. Thank you. Councilor Luba?
Thank you, Mr. Jones. The Birch Grove Building Committee has been very active over the past several weeks. We did have a special session. Well, we had a regular meeting last Tuesday. We actually have a special session going on right now that I had to log out of. We did discuss a number of different change orders. Some of the biggest ones, and one of the ones that we were discussing at our regular meeting last week, was the issue regarding the playground and about what appeared to be a miscommunication regarding what was going to originally happen with the playground, where the plans that we discussed early on, so over almost a year ago, was just to basically return it to the original condition that the board agreed upon and voted upon. And then there was a request change order to modify it some at the expense of $60,000, which the committee asked to be passed until the next regular meeting so that we could discuss it further, just because we are getting to the point now where we're on time and under budget at this point, but the contingency funds that we have on the state side, on the town side, as well as on the construction side, are dwindling quickly, and that there was a significant concern with the members of the committee about the contingency funds being used up on some of these small special projects that are just sort of popping up at the last minute, and then getting caught off guard for something that may be more substantial that we don't have the funding for. So there's a growing concern about the use of the contingency fund and the request for some of these things by the town, as well as by the construction team, about how we're using those funds. But that there's several more of the contingency orders being discussed tonight, as well as other ones that we are tracking for next week. But the bottom line is on time, on budget, and that we're going to be looking, including one of the other issues is we are anticipating having a full discussion as well on the Miracle Field, which we had the special session for with the town council yesterday, just because that is going to significantly impact some of the issues that we have already approved, and that will have to result in a change order where the state has already agreed to pay $400,000 complete costs, nothing out of pocket for the town, to restore the area where the portables are back to its original state for use as a soccer field. And now with the proposal for the Miracle Field there, that's something that we'd have to take a look at and make our recommendations of the town council as far as whether or not it's something that we as a building committee feel should be acted upon or not, at least at this point. I think that there's support amongst the board, amongst the committee, that the Miracle Field is a solid idea that should be examined. But as far as delaying the remediation of the area underneath the portables, in the offhand chance that that the project will go there and will go forward fully, or facing a possible $400,000 fee to the town to replace that. That's something that we have to consider. But that's all I have. Thank you.
No, thank you. And yeah, there were a lot of questions from last night's meeting that were relayed to, I think, Mike Rosen and to Attorney Conti to review. So hopefully we'll get some of that information as well. Councillor Johnson?
Good evening.
Nope. Sorry, you got to unmute yourself. I went to unmute you for you, and it accidentally clicked at the wrong time.
No
Sorry about that.
problem. Not a problem. The Permanent Celebration Committee met last Thursday, and the only concern with regard to the Memorial Day celebration that we're having, some people question the notion of us not having a parade this year, but we're all aware that the restrictions were lifted fairly late in the year, and doing changes in order to accommodate a safe parade wasn't in the cards. So we're planning many different events that are on the Tolland Green, which will, everything begins at 12. I know that there's a pancake breakfast that is prior to that. So if people wanted to come out for that, they're more than welcome. One of the greatest thing I saw was that there would be reenactment actors that will be available to take photos. And I'm actually asking a question if it's possible for any of my fellow council members to be available to take a photo op with the reenactment soldiers. I think it would be a great thing. I know that there's an expectation for individuals to look at the Veterans Hall of Honor at the Tolland, at the town hall. So I don't know if we are able to, like, organize and schedule for us to be there for a photo op. I think that it would be awesome and definitely something that the children will be looking forward to. So we've been promoting that and, sharing that information on Facebook. However, it is listed on the website, the tolland.org, that you can click on Memorial Day observance, and the information is being updated as new things come. But the time still 12 to 3. Tolland High School band will be there. My son is a band player, not for Tolland High School, so I'm excited to see, and excited to hear the singers, excited to hear the words of encouragement, just as excited to see people coming together. So I'm hoping that the community still comes out as if we were still having a parade and just enjoying a possibly beautiful day on the Tolland Green. The museum, some of the museums will be open. Those will be listed as well on the website. And I also know that they're planning on doing walking tours. So I think that it would be, one of those things where not having a parade, keeps us a little bit where we have an opportunity to engage more rather than see a parade and then disperse and then go home. So I think that this is more of an opportunity for us to engage with constituents and walk around and just say hello and see who they are, walking as a team, getting to know each other in person. Another concern was with regards to mask. I think that the final decision will be left with our town manager with regards to masks being required. At this time, masks are required. I believe that they are just for going inside buildings, including town hall, but I will leave that to Mike in order to, reiterate that information with regards to the mask mandate and how it would reflect on our Memorial Day celebration. So I'm just looking forward to it. Of course, looking forward to next year and planning a parade. But this year, I think that it will be, an opportunity to be more engaging and walk around and talk with everyone that's there. So still excited about that. That is all. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I do see, I think there was a post earlier today from the town that I think did reassert that masks were required. It looks like at the bottom of the posting. And then in regards to the potential congregation of, if available counselors, if you want to shoot that as an email to myself, and then perhaps myself or the chair can send it out to everyone as a blind carbon copy message, so that it's not an illegal meeting and people can respond and say,
right,
yes, I'm available, no, I'm not available. Like if you throw out a proposed time and people can kind of say what times they may or may not be available if they're in town that day, that would probably be the best way to go with that.
Not a problem, will do. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. All right, Councilor Regan.
Thank you. WPCA did meet on the 18th I did have some technical issues. I wasn't able to get into that meeting as much as I tried, but I did review the minutes, and I can give you a quick update. Public Works Director Lappin reported that they got rid of some surplus pumps and sent them out to scrap. And then he gave an update on the 97 Gerber Drive. He was at the site last week and picked up payment for a connection fee for one of those buildings, and that fee is $10,000. Half goes to Tolland, half goes to Vernon. And the second building is slated for September, and he'll collect the fee at that time. He also gave an update on 65 Merrill Road, the Dunkin' Donuts. Their application has been filed and it is now before planning and zoning. And then he gave a brief overview of the College View project, and there's not a lot going on up there. They're just doing some work on the rear access drive off Anthony Road, and there's still an issue with reverse pitch that they've been talking about for months now, and they're still dealing with that issue, but there's not a whole lot going on up there. And that was about the extent of the meeting. It was a very quick one.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Councilor Shannon?
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. So the only meeting I have had was the Jackson John and I were there as the mental health task force. We had Nancy Dunn from human resources, or sorry, not human resources, human services, come in, talk to us about what her and her department do in the town, what services they provide, what she believes we're lacking, need to move, what direction she would like to see us move, giving us suggestions for the task force. So that was a very informative meeting, great meeting, and we've got coming up next Monday. So I forgot who we're talking to then, but I know somebody.
We're in information gathering mode here, and Nancy was very enlightening last week, and we have others that are gonna come and present to us. So as we gather this information, we'll put it all together, and then at some point we'll hopefully be able to make some recommendations.
No, that's great. Thank you. Councilor Schenner. And then for myself, I had 2 meetings on the 17th. The first was a special conservation hosted meeting. It was Frank Servo, who's from Deep, who's a forester, met with us at the Parsiac property. It was a very informative and engaging meeting about forestry management and selective logging in a way that maintains and thrives certain forestry areas. It was kind of noted that if we were to want to do this in the town, we would want a town-wide plan for all of the trails. So I need to circle back with the chair about it, but that's something that we may need to consider putting some investments into, because I think it was either the forester or one of the conservation members kind of said that we have our POCD as a working document, but this forestry management plan for our parks as well as our trails, this would be kind of the big C of that, the conservation element. So they're looking to try and do what would probably be a 10-year phased proposal to have loggers or have a company that's used by Deep that would come in and selectively log certain areas, usually taking trees that are dead or dying or at risk of falling. And in a way, it also helps the growth and undergrowth of the trails thrive and keep the natural ecosystems thriving for various critters. So it was overall a very engaging meeting. And then that same night, there was a water commission meeting. They did a leak detection study, which they didn't find any immediately, but they've noticed that there's some curb valves that are damaged. So there is concern there that if a customer were to call and have their water turned off, it wouldn't be possible to do so. So there's some potential future maintenance that'll be needed in those areas. But one thing that they, on a brighter note for Water Commission, was that this was probably one of their most profitable years in history, at least from those commissioners that were active as long as they've been, due to everyone staying home due to the pandemic. That I believe it was their net cash flow was, I believe, $190,000. Their available cash was about 1.3 million. So again, they just had they had a low spending year for repairs and services because there was very little need. But at the same time, due to everyone being home, there was a very high usage. So, and then on the 27th, there is a Conservation Commission meeting. This will be the last one. That's the second of the month that will be held on Zoom going forward for the summer. for any counselors and members of the public that are interested, they'll be doing their second conservation meetings in person at hiking trails, so that they'll hold a quick business meeting and then offer the opportunity for residents and members of the commission to go hiking afterwards while it's nice out and warm, as long as weather permits. So that about covers it for me. So we will move forward to new business items. So item 8.1, I'm just going to share my screen and get that up in just a moment. Let me know if you can see that all right. All right, great. So item 8.1, consideration and resolution to approve a bid waiver for the purchase of diesel from Dime Oil for the period of July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. Mike Wilkinson or Lisa, if you would like to take that away. Provide an overall summary.
Yeah, this is mine, so I'll talk about it. So as you know, or as it mentions in the cover sheet, we on an annual basis buy gasoline, diesel, and fuel, normally through the regional purchasing council bids. So our current contract with Dime Oil goes until June 30th of this year. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, mainly, and also it was a slightly mild winter, there's going to be leftover gallons of about 25,000 gallons remaining out of our original 118,000. So to avoid liquidation fees, which has happened in the past, it happened, I believe, last year for the Board of Ed with another vendor. The current vendor, Dime Oil, has offered to basically blend and extend if we extend out another year, so that we don't have to pay the upfront liquidation fees for the 25,000 gallons. So currently we're paying $1.87 per diesel per gallon. As you know, gas prices are a little bit higher than they were last year because of several issues. So right now it's about $2.21. Luckily, we did budget about $2.30 this year, so we're still in the range of what we budgeted. So so what this item would do would let us basically, blend out any issues with the remaining gallons over the next year and lock in at a lower number. Actually, we're going to reduce it because just to be a little more safe. The Board of Ed is assuming they're going to have a year that's normal next year, but you just never know. So we're going to try to, not have this happen again. So we're going to be a little more conservative on our gallons that we lock in for next year. So that's basically the summary of why we're asking for the bid waiver to do this blend and extend out for the next year.
Okay, great. I'll open the floor if there's any questions from counselors. I'm just going to scroll down the screen to the resolution, just so that if there's no discussion, if someone is interested in reading that out in my stead. So, any questions? No, Councilor Luba.
Thank you. Mike, this is pretty much the same thing that we were looking at, that we did last year, is with locking in the price moving forward.
Yeah, we've done this periodically. Yeah, when it's beneficial, either if it's something like this, or if there's a time in the year where we notice there's really low per gallon cost, sometimes we bring it and say, well, let's lock in now so we can get the really low price. So yeah, we've done this before. We did it with fuel oil, I think, last year. So it's similar. And
okay, that's all I wanted to verify. So thank you.
Yep.
That's all I have, Ms. Jones. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So if there are no other questions, which I don't believe I see any, I'm having to scroll side to side, sharing the screen to find all the counselors, but I would then entertain a motion to read out the draft resolution as outlined in 8.1, and I have it shared as a screen so you can read it from there. Otherwise, it is on page 5 of 43 of the packets.
You need someone to read it?
Yes.
All right, I'll read it for you. Whereas the town of Tolland has in the past purchased gasoline, diesel, and fuel oil in conjunction with the Board of Education through the Capital Region Purchasing Council, and the current contract that Tolland has with Dime Oil for the purchase of diesel expires June 30th, 2021. And whereas the Purchasing Council normally goes out to bid for diesel in March, which requires that we approximate the prices for budget purposes. And whereas Dime Oil has offered the option to the town and Board of Education of locking in at the current market rate at this time for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 for diesel. And now therefore be it resolved that the requirements for bidding diesel is hereby waived in accordance with the town policy A-126, 11D7, and the Tolland Town Council hereby authorizes Mike Rosen, Town Manager, to execute an agreement with Dime Oil for the purchase of diesel for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Approved by the Town Council today.
Slow Lube, I'll second that motion.
All right, great. Motion by Counselor Falusi, second by Luba. Any further discussion?
Can I just ask, do we need to say authorized by Michael Rosen or his, what's that word?
Designee? I don't believe
Appointee.
so. I don't believe so. I think just as
Okay.
long as I think
Yeah,
we're all-
no, he'll sign the contract, so that should be fine.
Just wanted
Okay.
to ask.
no worries.
Thanks, Brenda. Yep.
All right. There's no other discussion. Then do a roll call vote. Counselor Falusi,
Aye.
Counselor Luba,
Aye.
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Counselor Regan,
Aye.
Counselor Shenner,
Aye.
and I am an aye, so that is unanimous, Mike. We'll move forward to item 8.2, consideration of a resolution to declare surplus equipment as surplus property within the town. I have that summary up, but I did see, Mike, if you want to give a summary, but I did see Chief Lightel is on if you would like him to provide any additional.
Yeah, I mean, John can certainly jump in if he wants to. It's pretty straightforward. So we, the fire chiefs, or no, I'm sorry, the fire marshal's vehicle was up for replacement. So that vehicle was ordered and was being equipped, and now it's ready. So his current vehicle is really up for surplus. Again, it's a 2011. It's got over 100,000 miles. That's just miles, so that doesn't include kind of just wear and tear about, idling miles and things like that, which he may do. So it's really beyond its useful life as far as any type of vehicle for the town. So by surplusing it, that'll allow the town to sell it for whatever value we can get it. So that's really the whole story of this vehicle.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Did you have anything to add for that?
Yeah, so just for a real past history wise, a lot of my vehicles have emergency lights or other items in there. I think it might be beneficial to the town if you guys surplus it, then give me the opportunity. And I think we've already talked to Mike Wilkinson and Mike Rosen and Lisa. If I end up putting it up on a gov.deals website, we might have another agency outside of Connecticut somewhere that similar bought my Durango many years ago, but it's easier for me to sell it as it is with the lights and the stuff on it to another agency that can use it for another couple of years. That might just be a fire police vehicle or something that sits on the side of the road, not an emergency response vehicle. Otherwise, I take the lights off of it. The lights and the stuff that's on it's over 20 something years, but I hate to get rid of junk stuff or take the lights off of it and then we store it and then I got to surplus that stuff and there's no value to it. So it's a kind of a complete package right now because it's got an extendo bed that could be worth $1,000 and maybe $2,000. So as a complete vehicle, we might get more money out of it from a town to sell it that way there as a package to another municipality that might use it just to sit on a side of the road for traffic or something else wise, versus stripping all the stuff out of it and then me trying to piecemeal sell the other items off of it. And then I felt whatever we would get for it could end up being put back into the pool car surplus fund to, offset any other future costs down the road. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Otherwise, if you guys say no, then I strip all the stuff out of it that's ours and then try to sell it or discard that as surplus as well, which is really limited value to it because it's, probably 15, 20 years of old emergency equipment. So if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. Thank you for that context. Let's see, Councilor Fusi, your hand is up.
Yeah,
Is that a
I
question?
don't. Yeah, I don't see any wording in here that prevents you from doing that, Chief. But I want to make sure.
Yeah, no, yeah, there isn't. No, whatever we can do to get the most money is what we'll do. And John's idea is a good one. So
Okay. Are there any other questions from councilors? All right, seeing none, I'm going to scroll down to the resolution as outlined in 8.2, which is on page 8 of 43. So I'd entertain a motion for a councilor to read that resolution into the record.
All right, this is Lulu, but I'll make that motion that be it resolved that the following attached list of equipment is hereby declared surplus and may be disposed of in accordance with policy A176-4, policy concerning disposal of surplus personal public property, approved by the Tolland Town Council, and that would include the 2011 Ford Expedition, VIN number 1FMJU159BEF28050.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh. So motion made by Councilor Luba, seconded by Councilor Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilor Falusi?
Aye.
Councilor Luba?
Aye.
Councilor Johnson?
Aye.
Councilor Regan?
Aye.
Councilor Shenner?
Aye.
And I am an aye, so that is unanimous. Best of luck, Chief. Hopefully it's a good deal. Moving on to item 8.3, consideration of a resolution authorizing the Town Council Chair to enroll in the .gov program. I know this was something that was discussed, I believe, at our past meeting or a few meetings ago, but Mike, if you want to give any additional context to this from the packet.
yeah, so there's some information in the packet, but I'll just summarize it. So this is what changing to the designation of .gov kind of provides more security for the town. Obviously, the federal government, the GSA, oversees the security of .gov. It's also .gov is hosted. The registry is hosted by it. So obviously, anyone can just create a .org, but you need specific approval to get a .gov domain name. So that's the thought on this one. Multiple towns have started doing this. They're mentioned it below. South Windsor, who's our IT partner, has done it. The plan is it's not going to be done overnight. It's still going to take a while to do. And even when we do it, anything that's sent to .org, or if it's a .org email address, will be sent to the .gov. So there'll be some transition period, I think, of a year or so when that happens. Like I said, it's not going to happen immediately, and obviously there'll be some minor changes. We'll have to get new letterhead and things like that, but that won't be difficult to do. But it's just a way to be a lot more secure, again, in this time when kind of cybersecurity and cyber issues is a big deal. This is one of the ways we're headed. One of the questions that Mike wanted me to pass along is the designation that they've put on the application is tollandct.gov. Tolland.gov is also available, but there are other Tollands in the country. For example, there's a Tolland, Massachusetts. So we just wanted to make sure everyone was comfortable with the tollandct.gov .gov as something that can be used for this designation. And the reason why Tammy is signing off on it is because the federal government doesn't recognize, I guess, Michael's signature. It's more the chief elected official, so that's why she's doing this one. So, and John's here too. If you want to get a comment from him, he's somewhat involved with this. So if you can certainly, John can chime in if he has anything else he's want to expand on it. But that's kind of a general summary of where we are.
Okay, I'll entertain some questions from counselors, and then I'll circle back to the chief if he has any additional information. So, Councillor Johnson, it looks like you were first.
Yes, I just wanted to know if the switching the designation, if that would include the SSL certificate as well.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Sophia, when you said
If it would include the SSL certificate, just to ensure, because I know that sometimes when town switches from orgs to gov, that if the SSL isn't done as well, it may, certain web browsers may not go to that website. So I just wanted to know.
To be honest, I don't know, but we'll definitely look into it. I'll have to ask that. I'm not sure. But I'll make a point to ask about the SSL designation.
All right. Councillor Flusy, do you have a question?
That's offered, that will include that. So that's what my question is.
Okay.
All right, one point of information and one question. One point of information is I took a look at the .gov domain names, and the naming convention actually does require us to use the city and the state, the abbreviation for the state designation. That's something that they switched to, I think, about 18 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, that's good to know.
Yeah, because of there being a couple other Tollands, and Tolland, Massachusetts is less than 50 miles from us. So there's interesting things that happen with that. But I also want to make sure that we still consider, or we do consider possibly still owning the rights to the .tolland.org, at least for a while. I don't want someone to, I don't know what the proper term is, spoof us and create a Town of Tolland webpage with the Tolland.org, that's something that we need to consider while we're moving forward too.
Yep, that's a good point. I'll make a note. Yeah, that's, I know we'll definitely have it for a certain, I don't know how long, but that's a very good idea that it doesn't get taken over by someone else. So
yeah, and from my understanding, to own that domain name, it probably wouldn't cost that much. So,
yep.
Less than like $50 a year or something like that, right? So
you may even be able to redirect it so that if someone typed in Tolland.org, it could automatically redirect you to CT.gov instead.
Yeah, that'll happen initially. I just don't know. I know it's going to happen for a certain amount of year, but after that, but maybe we just have the domain name owned by us after that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And then I'm just going to scroll over to see if Chief Lytle, do you have any additional information you want to provide in terms of using the .gov, how that's beneficial?
No, so obviously I'm not talking as a chief now, I'm talking as a director of public safety. So I've been involved in Homeland Security since 1998. Something I'm involved with CTAC, which is the Connecticut Intelligence Center through the state police. I was hoping to have more of a dialogue tonight, but CTAC, I can tell you, is putting a panel together to review this, and they obviously support it 110% because there's been many municipalities that have been hacked by cybersecurity, and it's something that gives us a higher level of security protection as a municipality in a town. So it's a very good way to go. Scott Roberts, our IT person, sits on the CTAC commission as well. So something that we've been talking about over the last couple of years. So it's the right move as far as moving into the future with all the cybersecurity. And we all just saw what happened to the gas line. And, that's going to end up happening to a lot of different municipalities of different cyber hacks and different security stuff. So, it's the right move to move. And there's like Mr. Wilkinson said tonight, there's assurances in place that if someone types in Tolland.org or email addresses, everything else, there's a blanket policy that forwards over and redirects things. So it's a right move in the future. So I would highly recommend the town, as I sit as your emergency management director with many cybersecurity classes and everything else over the last 2 years that are just increasing, that it's a highly recommended practice. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Councilor Lube, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jones. That I would just like to echo Chief Lytle that, I think he summarized it all pretty well with the background in cyber security and cybercrime as well, that this is something that I think that definitely is needed. And I appreciate the fact that Chief had already been looking into this and that this is something that the town has decided to go forward with. So I would full-heartedly endorse this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to have the resolution as outlined in item 8.3, which is page 13 of 43 in the packet, to be read into the record.
Lulu, I'll make that motion that whereas it's been identified that it is beneficial for the town to enroll in the .gov program, now therefore be it resolved that the Tolland Town Council Chair, Tammy Nuccio, sign a letter enrolling the town into the .gov program approved by the Tolland Town Council today.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
All right, so the first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilor Falusi?
Aye.
Councilor Luba?
Aye.
Councilor Johnson?
Aye.
Councilor Regan?
Aye.
Councilor Schenner?
Aye.
And I am an aye, so that is unanimous. We'll move right along to item 8.4, and that is a discussion regarding the Eversource gas line expansion. Item summary, a councilor had requested to bring this item up as an agenda item for consideration, and this introduces the item as new business. I don't know, Mike, if you have any additional context about that you can provide.
No, I think this was requested by Kurt, so I think I'm just going to turn it over to him to bring it up.
Yes. All right. So I had requested that we had a discussion on this several months ago. I spoke briefly with Mr. Rosen on this topic, and he really wanted us to just kind of talk about where the town council felt on the idea of having expanded gas line. Now, this isn't there's nothing in the works as far as like they're going to dig a gas line in our town next week. This is more of a conversation about, are we interested in speaking with Eversource and the other gas suppliers in the area, having a more detailed conversation later in the year. So this is what Mike Rosen intended for this to be, is kind of gauge the commissioner's interest in this topic. Is this something we should explore further as the year goes on?
All right, thank you, Councilor Schenner. And this is a quick question for me. So there's currently a line, I think from a discussion I had previously, there's one that's in Mansfield. So if it was being considered, this could be a potential extension from one community to another, or would this be an entirely new line? If you happen to know the answer. Oh, you are muted. Oh, guess you had to step away for a second. So I'll just open up the floor for discussion. You see Councilor Falusi's hand is up.
Oops. I'm not muted. Okay. Brenda Falusi here. The Planning and Zoning Commission had also requested a couple meetings ago or a couple months ago, that we take a look at expanding both sewer and gas. There's a few, and they are, planning and zoning did mention last night that they are agreeable to taking a look at expanding the gas lines. When we're talking about equity, this is my own comments now. It is shown that when utilities are expanded in around town centers, that we can end up having a more diverse housing. We can end up having more dense housing, which leads to more affordable housing. As you know, Tolland only has 3.7% affordable housing. This might be an opportunity that we can help bring that number closer to the 10% where we should be. And if we're looking through the center of town or an area that has access to the highway, has access to public transportation, then it is more likely that we could end up having, again, the more diverse stock and more affordable housing stock. But gas line extensions are not the only way to do this. We can also take a look at some other options, you know, that could help us achieve those goals. And I think that was, you know, I would just like to see a map of where the lines are, where we might decide to go, and also what other options for heating are available. And because, you know, things change, and gas might not be the best thing in the future for us to be promoting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Luba, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Just two things. First one is, since we have Chief Lytle here, is get his input on this, since this may have an impact on fire and safety operations. That we also have Mr. Lappin here and see if there's any impact that it would have on Public Works. And then the last thing is that I see that we have Jonathan from Eversource here, where I'd like to sort of, since we have him available, and he's actually got his hand raised already to speak, that maybe we could get input from them. But I'd like to hear from the town first with the chief, and then then Mr. Lappin, and then go to Jonathan after that, if possible. So
Yeah, that's fine.
I'd yield the floor to them. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll probably let town staff ask, go through it first, and then if Councilor Johnson has any questions, kind of raise those openly, and then from there, I saw John's hand was up, so I'll let him kind of have the floor to provide some additional information, and hopefully he's jotting down some of these same questions that I'm seeing. So if that's being said, Chief Lytle or Scott, if you would like to provide any input on this discussion, you're more than welcome to.
So yeah, just in general discussion purposes, I had brought this up probably several years ago, back when we were doing a sewer line down Old Post Road, and I thought it was a great time when we put the other development in off of Old Post Road that kind of hooks up with the industrial park. So we obviously have that gas line that comes down down into the industrial park, and John and I have already talked about this several times. But that's your closest route, and obviously for businesses and other community stuff, that's where the, obviously 195 is our commercial zone and a commercial business wise. Unfortunately, I guess back in the day, probably 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't the right time to do. But, obviously I would support anything that is generally in there, as well as I know some of the councilors brought up about the sewer stuff. So it's something that has always been behind my aspect as far as utilities. Obviously the industrial park kind of stands pretty proficient when we have storm outages and other aspects as far as energy wise. So I know there's been some discussions as far as the different utilities, and I'm going to let John, as the expert, speak about that as far as where Eversource is and CNG, because it's two different firms, and I think some people are getting confused about that. So I would yield to the expert of John to explain the rest of it. But many years ago, so similar to the expansion of the 195 water line going all the way to Yukon, I hate to see roads dug up 3 or 4 times. So whatever we can do to future plan and plan ahead for other economic or business wise or stuff like that, I think that's where we should be proficient. So thanks.
Thank you. And then Scott, I'll let you go ahead for Public Works.
Yeah, to kind of echo what John had said, typically what we do is we will give other utilities such as Connecticut Water a copy of our 5-year plan. This way, if they have intentions of upgrading their mains and services to the homes, we can kind of work in conjunction with each other so that we don't do what John was just talking about as far as no sooner paving a road and then ripping it up, because the patch never holds up the way brand new pavement does. This worked out very well for us. I think it was 3 years ago when we did Pilgrim Carriage, that whole neighborhood up there. Connecticut Water came to us and said they wanted to put in new mains and services. So we delayed it for a year. And what we did was, instead of having their contractor come in and cut everything out and patch it, they just gave us a check in lieu of doing that. And when we went in and milled everything, we were able to apply that right towards our paving program. As far as the gas goes, the gas does provide I won't say it's 100% uninterruptible, but it does provide a pretty reliable source of fuel during, a major weather event, or, God forbid we ever have, tornadoes or whatever come through. So, thank you.
No problem. And Councilor Johnson, if you don't mind, I was going to actually let Mr. Ferrigno
go right
jump
ahead.
ahead. Okay, great. So John, if you're unmuted, you can go ahead and provide any contextual information you can to the council.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I know I've spoken about this with John Lytell, since basically I joined Eversource. He's brought this up to me. And so I will say that the got line in Mansfield, I know that Mansfield is supplied by CNG gas, so that would be their infrastructure there. And I had very preliminary discussions with our gas account executive and the town manager about possible expansion down towards, the big Y in town and that area. And I will say that the company is always looking for expansion opportunities, but there's a lot that goes into, calculating, what's the best route to take from where our existing infrastructure is, how many and what kind of, whether it be residential or commercial properties, can we get hooked up to the new infrastructure to get to ultimately where we want to be. I would be glad to see if I can get some sort of blueprint of our existing infrastructure in town and get it to the right people so you all have an idea of what we're working with. And then we can, I'd have to set up a meeting with our gas team to talk about, any possibility of expansion in town. Unfortunately, tonight, I can't tell you that, whether it's a possibility or not, but I would be glad to get you a blueprint of our existing infrastructure in and around town. And then I can get the ball rolling for you with our gas team. If you do want to sit down and kind of have, a preliminary discussion on, where we would like to see expansion if it was possible. And then we can kind of come back and tell you, that's realistic or maybe it's not. So I hope helpful.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Councilor Luber, your hand is still up. I don't know if you had additional questions or you're all set.
No, I just want to follow up. It sounds like from the comments that Mr. Lappin said, as well as everyone said so far, that this was one of those successful synergies that we had where the town actually looked forward and provided some of this information to Eversource so that we could do some team planning. So I appreciate the efforts of Public Works and of everyone in the town getting this out there, and for Jonathan and his team to look at this and work with us on this for what I think is a really definitely a great opportunity and a definitely needed resource within the town. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
All right. Thank you. Councilor Schenner?
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I just want to address a couple comments to Mr. Ferrigno. If you could send over, like you had mentioned, the blueprints of the existing, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, as far as, I mean, you had mentioned talking with your team, what would be easier for, or what would be more beneficial for your discussion? Would it be to have an idea of, where the Tolland Town Council would love to see gas lines in town before you have that meeting, or is that something that you kind of can have a meeting, see get an initial preliminary idea of what's feasible, and then have a second meeting with us? What would you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, I think a combination, honestly, because I think we would like to know, in an ideal situation, where you would like to see us try to extend our main to. And at the same time, on our end, while we're looking into, your desire there, we're going to have to calculate, like I said, if any sort of expansion from that existing infrastructure in the near future is realistic. To answer your question, I think it would be helpful if I had some sort of idea, of the general area or route that you would like to see us take. And I can go to our gas team and set up a meeting. And they'll be able to tell me, and you probably right off the bat, this is something that we can look into realistically. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Hi, so my question was just regarding whether there'll be an opportunity for, I'm not sure if we do public hearings. From what I understand, it sounds like it would be a gas line that just is it as a bypass through Tolland, or would it be something where residential customers would be able to, if they wanted to have an alternative to the oil and propane, if they wanted to tap into that gas line, if that's something that the public will be able to have an opportunity to weigh in and determine if it would be beneficial for additional gas lines. I know that involves a lot of work and a lot of digging up and a lot of time, but it would, if it's going to be available and already available and we're looking to expand, if it's possible to at least have some type of public hearing where if the public would like to have access to that line in order to have an alternative energy source, if that would be something that we can throw into the discussion as well as to whether it would be feasible to do so.
Okay, so I don't know, Jonathan, if you're able to answer it all in terms of, I know it's probably very circumstantial as to where the line would go, but when you generally create these lines and extensions, are they a mixed use of residential and commercial, or would it be a potential line if you've done it in other towns where it's solely commercial hookup based?
Yeah, there's, we do, residential and commercial gas expansion projects. A lot of times you'll see, commercial projects that go into like an industrial area of town, but there are certainly residential opportunities as well. And like I said before, though, it really all depends on, when our gas team kind of looks at what we have now, what kind of routes we can take. And there's kind of a cost benefit analysis that's done, is all the work that we have to do to, get this infrastructure and all the roads that we dig up in town, is the cost and the time of all that, is that going to be realized, in these energy savings and the benefits for both us and the community when we switch over to natural gas. So to answer your question, we do residential gas expansion, but it's all circumstantial. So
Okay. And then I think that to try and answer, you'd probably have to circle back with the town manager and Mike Wilkinson about it. But I think in terms of a public hearing, I'm only speculating at this point. But if there was a potential to move forward and at any point public dollars need to be used for bonding, that may be an avenue for a public participation or public hearing process in terms of authorizing town funds or setting a referendum if it ended up in that particular avenue. But again, I'm just kind of speculating at that point. But Chief Lytle, if you want, I see your hand is up. If you have additional insight, I know there's
So
probably
they
some history in terms of the water system when that was set up, that there's
no,
probably
they
public input.
yeah, the only issue I have, and thank you, Steve, for allowing me to speak again. So the only issue I have is it's something similar to where like Big Y, for example, just changed vendors and they put up a brand new propane little farm. So these little propane farms that I have at Big Y, and then I have Cross and Builders up at Twin Ponds. I have these little propane farms in all these different places. As we're growing as a community, you got NARAC being advertised for being sold. You got Cross Farms, and then we have the brand new apartments that are going up at College View. This is something for future planning that I think between the town and John's company and Eversource, they can look as far as how far they're going to expand. I'm sure that if we had talked with Norwegian Woods, and as we go all the way down 195, that's something commercial wise, but these little propane farms that I have, as far as the Big Y complex, and I can name several others. We go there very frequently. I can say that Eversource has a great response team. When they come out, it's similar to the the electrical lines and the rest of the stuff, but they have a great response team when we have gas leaks. And I don't go down industrial parks for gas leaks, but I can tell you, I can go all the way up 195 for gas leaks. Whether it's the bank, we've been there several times, and we've been up to Twin Ponds several times. So as there's 8 different vendors for propanes, as we're expanding the 195, the village, the rest of the stuff, it's something to take in consideration as we're talking, planning and zoning and the rest of the committees, that, you come down, there's future expansion as we start growing as a community. So that's something to keep in mind, because you have a lot of commercial venues that, I would not even guess what John would probably shake his head at of what they switched over for vendors for a whole little propane farm at Big Y. But, that's a whole nother training aspect, down the road for us. So just keep that in mind as we move forward.
Thank you. Councilor Flusy?
Yep, thank you. Chief Lytle brought up something that I was going to bring up. I think we should ensure that we loop in planning and zoning, so that, because they're going through and updating their regulations right now. If they have the opportunity, if they know that there was going to be gas expansion, that may impact their thinking on what would be available in certain zones. And what kind of incentives they might have. Like if gas lines are going down 195, there may be a zone there that they may put incentives for or diverse housing, or for affordable housing, so that we can reach those numbers. Or they may change some ideas about what kind of commercial development might be available in an area because other utilities are available. And since they're working on the regulations now, I think that this is, very important that we ensure that they're involved in the conversation and providing some input and some feedback.
Thank you. And then I just had a question for you, John, in terms of working in other towns. That might be a document to provide in terms of, if you can share it with the town manager or the chief, in terms of sharing examples of other towns that you've either done extensions or new lines for, just to kind of have an idea of what the timeline would be like, what the costs are. I mean, I know it's apples and oranges, one town to another, but just to get a scope of what the work could be like and understanding costs. And then another question I had was in regards to the establishment of additional gas lines. Is this sort of a wholly private endeavor and you're going to do the cost benefit, or is public engagement or governmental partnership taken into consideration? If they're able to provide, like, I think I've heard it maybe in passing that the town is getting the ARP funds, the American Rescue Plan funds, and that could be used, I think, towards economic development or infrastructure perhaps, and this would probably fall under those auspices.
Yeah, so to your first point, I can definitely get you some examples of, gas expansion projects that we're doing in, similar type towns, just to try to give you a sense of, the scope of the work and the costs and all that. And then in regards to your second question, to be honest with you, I don't know specifically off the top of my head. It's certainly something that I can look into and get back to you if you'd like.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. In addition to those examples, yeah, if you can see, kind of the bottom line, and there might also be a question. I don't know, Lisa, if you would be aware of any examples historically, I mean, with the water system or any other systems in town for gas that we've done public-private partnerships with in terms of extending utilities.
There haven't, as far as I know, as long as I've been here, we haven't done any public-private, but I know when the whole Big Y was coming in, historically, the sewer line was expanded, but it was paid for by the town to help promote business growth in the town and to provide, the water and sewer lines that were needed for that entity. But as far as I know, there wasn't any public-private.
Okay.
A lot of times in my career, like if there's been new developments coming into town, like major developments, a lot of times there would be some sort of agreement with the developer to install like water lines or sewer lines or pump stations, things like that. Scott may even, I'm not sure if Scott would know about that from the towns he's worked in, but I know in some of the places I've worked, there have been agreements for that, so that, and then the town takes over the ownership of those systems. Oh, now that I think about it, there was the Crystal, Scott helped me here with this Crystal Lake.
Can't think of the name.
The water.
Right, that's the over 55.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was a private developer, but then it was supposed to revert to the town after a certain amount of time, and right now there's some issues going on with that whole thing. But that is one that was way before my time.
Right.
That I was aware of.
Yes, and the other municipalities that I've worked for, there's been plenty of times where a developer wants to come in and build, let's say he's going to build 50 or 75 homes in an area. And part of the agreement is that they will bring in the infrastructure for sanitary, for drinking water, gas, if it's available. Sometimes one of the areas I worked in, we even worked with the developer, gave them the guidance, and they built a pump station because it was, necessary to due to the layout or the lay of the land, I should say, in order to get it up and over a hill before it could go to gravity. So in order for them to build those 100 homes, they were going to, it was, and then they did turn it over to the town.
Oh, great. Thank you. That's good additional context. So I don't see any other questions at this point. So I would actually probably say at this point, maybe doing a straw poll among counselors to see if they want to continue this pathway of exploring natural gas extensions, just do kind of an informal straw poll. And then from there, perhaps we would indefinitely postpone that topic until we gather more materials from Eversource and other stakeholders and put this item back onto a future agenda. So Councilor Luba, I'll start with you for your thoughts on in being in favor of further exploring natural gas expansion in the town.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
All right. Councilor Falusi?
Yes, and I'd also like to include other energy sources too, to see what, do a comparison and contrast if that kind of information is available.
All right. Councilor Johnson?
Enthusiastically, yes.
All right. Councilor Regan?
Yes, I see it as being part of a larger conversation as far as any kind of expansion of housing that may take place in town. But yes, I'd like to get more information about it.
Okay. And Councilor Schenner?
I am a yes.
All right. And I'm also a yes, and I would also probably like to consider exploring potential water line extensions as another form of utility extensions. I think there was some discussions about trying to extend a line out towards where I think exit 69 is. There's an 89-acre parcel over there that people have wanted to develop in the past, and that might be also another area for potential gas line extensions that could be considered strategically. That it's also near Troop C, and there's a few areas there that could be of potential strategic importance. So I'm also in favor of that. And Councilor Lube, I see your hand is up.
Yeah,
let you,
thank you, Mr. Jones. I mean, I just want to follow up with the question where I know for Ms. Falusi, she mentioned about exploring other energy sources. Well, this is one that's being presented by Eversource on their gas and electric. If there's other companies that you want to call on to see about having them bring in proposals, because as far as alternative energy sources or other energy sources, I mean, those are the only two that I know that are out here. I mean, they're the only one that I know that's out here. So if there's other companies that you know of that you'd recommend, then I think that should be brought forward to the town as well, so that can be included during the discussions. Because I don't know of any. Thank you.
Yeah, it might not be another utility company. It might just be alternate energy sources that developers can use, you know, propane, obviously, in some other locations, heat exchange systems, heat pumps, solar. You know, there's a lot of other options that I just don't want us to limit ourselves to one. I'd like to do a comparison and contrast. And I'm sure that Eversource does know who their competition is. And, you know, other ways that people can do renewable energy in supplementing their gas. You know, I do not use fossil fuels at my home. We have a heat exchange system. We've received lots of correspondence on zero energy buildings and other types of heating and electricity and everything. So I think this is part of a larger picture. I think that gas is going to be part of our future here in Tolland. But I think that we can enhance the offerings and look to the future about what else might be available, you know, for green energy and energy consumption, et cetera.
Yeah,
So
well, I think that's something that's on an
fair
individual.
assessment of,
I'm sorry.
I guess, understanding other opportunities. 'Cause I know we do have the geothermal project that was passed in the town hall. And then I'm also recalling we do have a solar field that I think was a public-private partnership that we have a lease on that area that's near the orchard farm. So it's definitely interesting. It's definitely part of a broader conversation. But my apologies, Councilor Luba. Did you have an additional?
No, I just said that's, I think a lot of that is individual people finding things. This isn't a company like Eversource that goes around and that provides this type of service. But I think that's something, again, that we could take a look at. It's just, I was looking if she had, if Ms. Falusi had any additional resources that she'd be recommending that we examine as part of that. But that's something we could discuss at a later point in time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll make a note of that too, just to see what other resources are out there. Maybe reeling it back to the town manager to see. But it does seem overall that in terms of the discussion being about the natural gas line extension, besides the CNG, the Eversource is probably a primary competitor that offers that service and has experience doing it. So, but thank you. Are there any other questions from councilors? All right, seeing none, so then I would entertain a motion to have this item. I'm actually pulling up the language that we had from our last meeting to, I think it was permanently table this topic. If that's correct. If anyone has that up.
I don't have that language, but I'll make that motion that this be I don't think it was tabled, because table would be meaning it that we push it to the end of the meeting, so that it would be marked off and then just brought up for future for past business or at a later meeting.
I'll second
All right,
that.
is there a second? Oh,
Second.
second by Councilor Falusi. So all those in favor, Councilor Luba,
Aye.
Councilor Falusi,
Aye.
Councilor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilor Regan,
Aye.
Councilor Schenner,
Aye.
and I'm an aye, so that is unanimous. Thank you everyone for that robust conversation. Moving on to item 8.5, consideration potential action on renewal of field and ground maintenance agreements between the town and the Board of Education. Let me just go ahead. I will share my screen so that is up there for everyone. Just one moment. Hopefully you can all see that now. All right, and Mike Wilkinson, if you want to provide any additional contextual information for that, and then from there, I guess we can maybe give it away to Scott to provide any additional details.
Yeah, so this agreement comes up yearly. You actually, I think, approved it just last October. Basically, the only changes so far to this agreement are it was thought to be more prudent if we, instead of it doing on a yearly basis, it was a 3-year agreement with language that it can be brought up at any time by the parties. And also, Michael Rosen made some changes to item 5 about the required attendees at the annual meeting. So it's more flexible that way. But I believe that we probably want to table this one also, because I think this is kind of just a starting point. I believe, and Scott can, it may not change that much, but I believe they're meeting tomorrow on this just to go over some things. So we may want to table it just to make sure there aren't any additional changes. But if Scott has anything he wants to add, he can certainly do that too.
Sure. What we've done in the past is the frontline people, such as my operations manager, Paul Russell, Dennis Carr, myself, Pete from the school system. We will go over all of the areas of, excuse me, of responsibilities, such as like his facility maintainers will only shovel so far out from the building or certain areas, and then we take over. And it's a matter of just fine tuning each year. We typically don't have a lot of changes, and then what we do is Pete will bring it to Walt, we bring it back to Mike Rosen and say this is a workable agreement between both the Board of Ed and the town forces, and typically then I guess it gets brought forward to the town council for their approval or adoption. But it's really handled on the ground floor. If others want to have any part in it, we don't have any objection to it, but it's really the nuts and bolts of daily operations as far as plowing, mowing. One of the things that's a little bit new is behind the new Birch Grove School, there is a swale in the back for drainage that we as in Public Works are going to have to mow that a couple of times a year because the school system just does not have the capability of doing something like that. So that's something that will be brought up. It's already been brought up. Peter and Peter, Paul, Dennis and myself have gone over it. We know it's coming up this August, and we're all on board with what has to be done.
Okay, great. And so Scott and Mike, so are you saying that at this point you think that it would be your recommendation, unless the council wants to move forward, that we should table this to our next meeting for possible action?
Yeah, that's what Michael had recommended doing. But if you want to act on it, you certainly can. But that was what he wanted to recommend to do.
We do have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. I believe it's at 10 o'clock
Okay.
with Walt, Peter, and our side. We're going to sit down and go over any changes, if there are any. And then we will bring that back to Mike, and he can bring it forward to you folks, and you can move from there.
Okay, so then at that point, I would entertain a motion that we table item 8.5 so that it comes up as old business at our next regular meeting.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brenda. I was just gonna say I found the language that we used the last time where it was that the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead. If you found language, use it.
Yeah, no, the language that we used last time was that this, that agenda item number 8.5 be marked off without action, today's meeting to be reclaimed as old business for a future town council meeting.
Great, thank you. And is there a second?
Brenda Flucy, I'll second that.
All right. There's no other discussion. All those in favor, Counselor Luba,
Aye.
Counselor Flucy,
Aye.
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Counselor Regan,
Aye.
Counselor Shenner,
Aye.
and I'm an aye, so that is unanimous. So we will reconsider that at our next meeting. All right. So moving on to item 9, we have no old business. Actually, sorry, 8.6, appointments of vacancies on various municipal boards and commissions, which we have none. 9, old business. We have none. Item 10, report of the town manager. I don't know, Mike, if you have anything on Mike's behalf that you want to share that wasn't previously provided.
I don't have anything right now, no.
Okay, thank you. All right, item 11, adoption of the minutes. So I would entertain a motion that the minutes from May 11th, as outlined in 11.1, be adopted.
Brenda Flucy, so moved.
I'll
Is
second
there a
that.
second? All right, moved by Counselor Flucy, seconded by Counselor Regan. All those in favor, Counselor Luba,
Aye.
Counselor Flucy,
Aye.
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Counselor Regan,
Aye.
Counselor Shenner,
Aye.
and I'm an aye, so that is unanimous. Moving on to item number 12, correspondence to council. Counselor Flucy, take it away.
Yes, hi. So we received a number of correspondence, of course. We received 3 emails about zero energy buildings. We received 1 email about building electrifications. We received 1 email about the questions about the library hours, which was answered by the town manager. We received 5 letters of support and additional information about the Miracle Fields. That was the meeting we had last night. And we received 1 letter with questions about the Miracle Fields. And I received feedback that most of those questions were answered during our meeting Monday night. And that was it for correspondence.
All right, great, thank you. So Counselor Johnson, was your hand raised in regards to correspondence?
Yes, I did have a question.
Yes.
Prior to becoming a council member, I sent a letter in with questions with regard to the town and coordinating events with different political parties that would be in Tolland. And I don't believe that that was mentioned or responded to. With a few months ago, there was an event that was an Earth Day event that was apparently in coordination with or in cooperation with the Recreation Center. I just wanted to know if there were any legal concerns with regards to the town partnering or coordinating with different political parties in Tolland. And that was a correspondence that I sent in. I believe that you had the pleasure of telling me that you would pass it on, and I don't think that we ever got back to that. So that was just my question. I'm sorry. If it's inappropriate at this time to do so and ask, that was, I'm learning still.
No worries. I think that would probably be more germane under the communications and petitions from council persons, even though I know that that technically was submitted prior to becoming a council member. So let us circle back on that. I would probably have to defer to the minutes of our meetings to see if it was mentioned in those minutes from the time in which it was received.
I may have missed the meeting after that one. It was received, but I know I had missed 1 meeting. And I don't know who took up correspondence when I didn't do it.
Yeah, that's
And
a
the
good
other
point.
thing is, the other thing is with correspondence to the council, where it's unfortunate, but we're not required to, absolutely respond to every question or email.
It's a legal question though, like it's a fiduciary, it's a legal question. So it wasn't just a frivolous question. It was just for clarification with regard to if that is something that is allowed and if there was a process or procedure. But, you know, again, with looking back as to whether or not the communication was responded to, and more appropriately putting it under communication and petitions from councilperson, I reserve my opportunity to speak on it at that time, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's I guess that's fine at this point.
Thank you.
Councilor Luba, your hand is also up. Is this in regards to
There's
correspondence?
actually, yes, thank you, Mr. Jones. That actually, there was one other correspondence that just came in right before the meeting from a town resident who's also a veteran, who was questioning about the Veterans Recognition Commission and the status of the wall, and provided information regarding and was questioning why the town never went forward with the stone wall that was originally proposed. That was his correspondence. And so that's all I have to say. I just want to because it was just something that I just found what had popped up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Luba. I just saw that as well, checking my email really quickly. So good point of note there. All right.
Is that something we can pass over to the Veterans Commission?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Well, I
But
think
I think it's also something to address with the town council potentially if it's an action. I don't know if there's any, I don't know the whole history. That might be something we need to circle back on if there was any town council related action back in 2007 regarding a proposed wall and whether or not that was postponed or declined, or if, you know, the alternative I think that's mentioned in the email was done instead. I do know that there is, you know, obviously a memorial, and there's a, you know, POW MIA, you know, missing in action flag flown over on the green. So I think there are some sites there that are utilized to honor veterans, but it might be different than sort of a full wall that lists out the names of individuals, which I assume is what's being mentioned in this correspondence.
And we, just to jump in, Steve, we do have that inside the town hall, as you know.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I was here in 2007, but that's a long time ago, so I can't remember the specifics about the wall. But the good thing about what's in the town hall is that can be updated when needed. I actually saw Mr. Tapp in there today making some changes. So, but that's just some more information.
No, definitely appreciate the context for that. That may have been perhaps a factor in terms of their decision making, is having something that could be updated with more ease and have additions and revisions made. So, no, appreciate that. All right. If there is no other discussion, I'll move on to chairperson's report. Obviously, the chair is not here, but I did actually write down a couple of things just to keep in mind for the community. See if I can pull that up. So one, Councilor Johnson actually covered was the Memorial Day and PCC event. So encouraging residents to engage in that as they are comfortable doing so, and when available to visit the green, visit our great, you know, shops and museums, and go through the walking tour and observe all the great events. The second item I think the chair would have made note of is, I believe on June 1st at the town green from 4 to 5 p.m. there will be a Pride Proclamation presentation event. And then another item of note is that the Tolland Senior Center, I believe, recently established themselves a Facebook page. So if you want to give them a like, and we were talking about the tourism likes, they, I think, only have a handful dozen, maybe 50 or so likes at this point. So getting more seniors that are maybe engaged on social media connected to that page. They've done some video updates. And actually their most recent one about a week ago was that they are doing a senior center ice cream social free of charge. I believe the date is to be determined, but it'll be rain or shine in June. So encourage seniors, even if they don't like ice cream. She said, come on in, you can socialize, see people. It's probably been some time since the senior center has been really open and accessible. So I would encourage that. And that's all I have, at least at this point, for in lieu of a chairperson's report. So we'll move on to item 14, communications and petitions from council persons. If you want to raise your hand, I'll kind of just give an automatic reservation to Councilor Johnson, since I think they deferred their comments from item 12 to be in item 14. So take it away.
No problem. I appreciate that. As I mentioned before, it was one of those things where I saw that there was an Earth Day event that was worked on or promoted or publicized as being that was arranged or worked together with the recreation center. I thought it was very exciting. And I also had questions with regards to if it would be appropriate for the town or if it's allowed for the town to coordinate with political affiliations or any kind of political party or any kind of thing like that. Where I'm from, it's unheard of. So I was kind of surprised because then it allows for the opportunity for the town to show support for different members and, you know, different constituents and their different opinions and different parties that they support. And essentially, if the town, you know, works and collaborate with them, then that's the town still collaborating with a constituent that may not be affiliated with the majority or the minority, however it may be. But when looking for research for information to, you know, substantiate whether or not that was something that was appropriate for the town as a body that is, from what I understand, to be completely, you know, separate and apart from any other political affiliation, because once we become council members, we're members of the town, not, you know, necessarily to be attributed to any kind of political affiliation. So I just wanted to get that clarified. And again, that was back in April. We're approaching a month into that, and there wasn't any kind of follow-up. And I felt that it was important to identify that, because if the town is allowed to work and collaborate with political parties, and that's something that should be extended and should be offered. But I just don't know if legally we're allowed to do that. And, you know, that was like a question that I had, and it was a correspondence that just wasn't followed up on, or, you know, or it just fell apart in, you know, and again, as a council member, working in collaboration with the town through political parties, I just wanted to know if that is something that is allowed. And if not, you know, then it's something that shouldn't, if it's something that would be encouraged. I don't know, but it just seemed kind of odd and surprising to me. Again, it was an Earth Day event that actually was that worked as a collaboration. And then we also had the town that had an Earth Day event, and it kind of, you know, depending on what manpower that we have to promote the events in the town or to draft the, you know, very pretty flyer, it seemed that it could be circumvented or misconstrued as another town event. So I just wanted to get that clarified and to have that, you know, recognized, so that moving forward, there isn't any kind of confusion for, again, a new person like myself to the town. Thought it was exciting, but when I queried about it, it did bring up a lot of contention, and that wasn't the point of my bringing it up. And that's why I sent the correspondence to the town council, and then it just fell apart and I didn't get any follow-up. So I just wanted to go back and revisit that and ensure that if it's something that can be done, then I'm squared away and I understand that. And if it's something that cannot be done, that any type of promotion that would say that it's collaborating with the town would get permission from the town first. And if there's any collaboration with the town, then it be recognized officially with the town seal and everything else, so that people know exactly if this is a town collaboration that has been recognized by the town, not just the town departments.
Okay, thank you.
Steve,
No,
let me try to find the correspondence
Yeah.
and address it with Michael so that we can get Sophia an answer
Thank
to
you.
her specific question. That would just be my recommendation. I don't remember seeing the original email, but I'm sure we can find it and get the clarification that she wants as a council, you know, as a council member.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, that was the route I was going to take, is having, Mike, if you wanted to just keep Mike Rosen in the loop, and then just have that discussion and see if there's any need for the town attorney. I know that just speaking personally, I know that the Adopt a Spot program kind of is utilized by political parties, and just as a point of information, that they're kind of seen as civic organizations, even though I know they're labeled as political parties. So there are examples of political parties working with the town in terms of adopting spots that are landscaped, and sometimes they just donate money to the town to do that work, and other times they do it themselves. So that may also fall in line with that broader conversation of engagement with the town and political parties in terms of events or certain programs. So that's a good point of information. And yeah, we'll circle back with Mike when he's available again to get to the bottom of that email. So thank you. Councillor Falusi, your hand is up next.
I thought maybe Lou was before me. It doesn't.
Actually, no, yeah, no, my apologies. Lou is before you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you, Ms. Falusi, for letting me go. I just want to take this opportunity, since we are now approaching Memorial Day weekend, is to recognize the sacrifice that many veterans had in service to our country. That as we've already addressed in some of the correspondence that was presented earlier, that there are many people that have been affiliated with Tolland that gave their lives in protecting our country, and that I think this is an outstanding time for us to recognize that it's more than just the it's colloquial saying, it's more than just the barbecues and the parades, and that there's actually the people that we need to recognize and remember the reason for this Memorial Day weekend. Building on that, this is something that I am asking, and I'm petitioning to be put on a future town council meeting, is to have a full discussion on the veterans wall. As a veteran and as speaking with other veterans throughout town, that while the wall of honor inside the town hall is an outstanding thing because it does allow people to be recognized, I think it is a I don't want to say it's substandard, but it's something that leaves a lot to be desired. Where to have your name on a piece of paper inside the town hall, after some people giving their lives to in service of the country, I think it's something that we have had a groundswell support within the veteran community within town, as well as other organizations that have brought forward the idea of actually putting in a permanent wall. And so I'd like to have this brought up, and also have the Veterans Recognition Commission brought before the town council, and the enacting town code provision, since the town code provision that created the commission actually needs to be updated since it's outdated, that it does not include the newest Space Force, and so it doesn't encompass all the armed services at this point any further. Plus, as Mr. Jones and I have discussed previously, that there are actually merchant Marines that can be recognized that served during World War II that are not included as it as well. So I think that's something that we need to take a look at that, as well as not, since the Veterans Recognition Commission is the only board that restricts its membership in any way to just solely veterans. And I understand the purpose for that, but I think that it would also, as I brought forward in other meetings, be appropriate to include veterans' families or immediate family members of veterans that can take part and be part of this recognition, since they're the ones that are most directly connected with somebody that's either overseas and returning home, or they're still dealing with the issues of being a veteran and some of the things that occurred overseas. So I would ask that this matter be brought forward on a future town council meeting. But that's I believe that's all I have at this point. I appreciate everyone's patience in my statements here, but it's something that I feel, as a veteran, feel very strongly about, especially as we approach Memorial Day weekend. Thank you all.
Appreciate Councilor Luba, and I'll definitely relay that to the chair for discussing future agenda setting, and also to Mike Mike Rosen in terms of future agenda items where that could possibly be put in place. So thank you. Councilor Falusi.
Thank you. First, I'd like to second a lot of what Mr. Luba has said. As many of you know, my husband served for well over 20 years with the Connecticut Air National Guard, and families serve right alongside their service member. So I believe that having families participate, they may have a little bit more time or energy, or be able to provide some additional help in many ways to this commission. So I wanted to also expand a little bit on what Mr. Jones had been saying. Our political groups inside of Tolland have been robust and very supportive of the town. Besides the Adopt a Spot, we have participated in maintenance of trails. We've participated in cleanup, donations to the library, donations to events and programs, buildings and upkeep of town facilities. So, you know, we are an integral part, you know, both political parties, and I'm not sure if we have any third political, you know, other political parties who are involved, but, you know, I'd like to recognize the contributions that we make many of the times behind the scenes. And that I appreciate when the parties take a look at what the requirements are for using things like the trails and the facilities, and follow through and make recognition that they did get permission to do that event or program. So moving on, 1 year ago today, George Floyd was murdered, and it created basically a global reckoning and brought around a movement for social justice and many, many discussions on systemic racism. We've seen in Tolland many protests, many discussions, many inquiries from the town residents to help promote social justice, to address systemic racism, and to try to provide true equality. We even have a family that is protesting to declare racism as a health crisis every Friday afternoon on the town green. I see you, I hear you. I want to be a partner with you to help achieve the equity and the equality that every resident in this town deserves. So I just wanted to take a moment to address this anniversary and let you know I see you and I hear you. I'm learning, and I hope you call me out when I'm not looking at things through a true equity lens. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do see Councillor Johnson's hand is up again. Is this a new additional request or comment? Just knowing that we generally don't utilize the petitions to engage in back and forth with councilors.
Oh, no, I do understand that. It's with regard to the family that was that is petitioning or picketing, whatever, on the Tolland Green. I did have an opportunity to approach them, and I did speak with, I believe she said her name was Annalise, and I let her know, I introduced myself as a new council member, and that I would like to learn more about the issues and concerns that, you know, that has her outside with her children on the Tolland Green, you know, saying that racism is a public health crisis here. And that was roughly almost a month ago as well. And there wasn't any follow-up. There wasn't anything. I don't know if there's an organization, any of that information to be called into record in recognition or in proclamation by a council member. I felt that it was germane for me to mention that I did, in fact, you know, approach this individual and said that I was new. She mentioned that there had been previous no dialogue. And I was like, well, I'm here, you know, I would love to learn more because I don't know the previous history of what other council members may have said. But as a person of color, you know, her child, you're mentioning her child was a person of color, I would like to be a part of that solution. And I don't know if they're here tonight, but there wasn't any dialogue that was engaged at that time. There wasn't any follow-up to engage as recognizing and saying that I was a council member. So along with council member Felucci, I'm here to listen. I'm here to be the advocate on behalf of our people. I look at everyone as Americans and don't really label people of color as anyone different than anyone else. But I don't want to discount that someone else's experience may be different from my own. And I, as a council member, I would love to be able to help, to be able to see how I can help. She's, like I said, she's outside. She's saying it's a public health crisis, and I would just like to be able to be a part of that discussion. And I offered to be a part of that discussion before. So I just wanted to bring a note to that, with Councilmember Falusi bringing that up. I just want to say that I did actually go out and pull over in the car, get out of the car and said, let's talk. And if you're out there, Annalise, I'm still here waiting to talk and would love to be able to hear more. Thank you.
Thank
Not
you.
back and forth, but to address that concern. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Councilor Johnson. And if you'd like, I could try and send you a correspondence if you want to see some of the context of prior conversations. I think that they're probably protesting about or on the green about, I believe they were from kind of January to February or March of this year. So there's some minutes that could be reflected for additional education. I can try and pin those down and send those over to you, but thank you for those additional comments. Councilor Falusi?
Yeah, well, what I was going to suggest is, can we get Ms. Johnson a copy of the correspondence to the town council for the 2 years that we've been here? No, can she get access to that? So because there's going to be other things that come up in the agenda that I'm sure she's going to, the minutes only go so far. Is there everything that's addressed to the towncouncil.org, can't she get access to that so that she has that knowledge?
That's a good question. I'm definitely writing that down to perhaps relay to Mike, because that would probably be an IT question in terms of what's saved and what's in archives and what's available,
Well, she could always FOIA it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd rather provide the easiest form of
I'm okay with, as it hits the agenda, I'm quite all right with being able to do my research when it hits the agenda. Going over 2 years worth of minutes would probably have me have a plethora of questions that may not be germane to an immediate agenda. So as they come on the agenda, difficult when it comes to communications and positions from council members. So Steve, thank you. If you wouldn't mind sending over that correspondence to me with regard to declaring racism a public health crisis. That's not on the agenda. That was spoken and read into the agenda. So I appreciate it if you can send that to me. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll definitely look into the minutes for some of those meetings. But yeah, for the communications, the town council, that I think we need to go to the town manager for IT to see what correspondences are archived and how they could be sent to specific counselors or held in public record, perhaps at the town hall building itself. So thank you for that. Other counselors with their hands up at this point, I do see that there's a resident with their hand up, and I'm guessing they might have an answer to what we've been discussing, but I just want to make that be a part of our final agenda item, or second to last agenda item, which is public listed participation on any subject within the jurisdiction of the town council with a 3-minute limit. So Mayor Lee Beebe, you are welcome to speak. If you
Hi,
can
thank you. This is
and
Mayor
just
Lee
write your name
Beebe.
and address, sorry.
This is Mayor Lee Beebe, 90 Rhodes Road. I just wanted to follow on the access to the correspondence for the business items for the council. So the law is pretty unambiguous that has to be available, but I also did receive some correspondence from the town manager as we were discussing this, I think back in January or February, and I will dig that out and I will forward it to, I guess you, Steve, are the correct person, so that maybe you can disseminate it, because I think it had an opinion as far as access to that information that might be helpful to y'all.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, if there's anyone else from the public, you can either raise your hand with the icon, or if you're on a phone, it is *9. And then again, you need to provide your name and address for the record. All right, John Crickmore.
John Crickmore, 31 Cook Road. With all the discussion of Memorial Day coming up, I was curious as why the flags aren't up on the green like normal, and are they planning on being put up, the ones on the poles along the road? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just to respond a little bit. I know Mike's here. He could probably redirect that to Scott Lappin. I assume it's probably Public Works, if not Recreation that handles that.
Yeah, I'll mention, Scott dropped off, but I'll bring it up with him.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any other members of the public? Feel free to raise your hand or hit *9 if you're on a mobile device. Seeing none. Item number 16, adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:06.
Move it, well, move.
Brenda Flusy, second.
All right, Councilor Luba makes a motion, Councilor Flusy seconds. All those in favor, Councilor Flusy,
Aye.
Councilor Luba,
Aye.
Councilor Johnson,
Aye, good night, everyone.
Councilor Regan,
Night.
Aye.
Councilor Schenner,
Aye.
and I am an aye, so that is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night and have a peaceful and pleasant Memorial Day. Thank you.
Thank you. You two all.
Good night.